Joining us right now is former Impact player, former Jamaican international, Lloyd Barker. Lloyd, welcome once again, my friend.
Great to be here, Anthony. How are you?
I'm a little disappointed. I got to be honest, real disappointed for all Montreal Impact fans and all the city of Montreal, and two guys who you and I both know, Enzo and Paolo, both guys that really were devastated by this loss. But let's talk about, first and foremost, Lloyd, the lead up to this game, the buzz around the city, the electricity leading up to it, and the way the Montreal fans really showed the world what a city they are and how knowledgeable they are about the game. Talk about that.
No, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I don't know how many people will know this, but the crowd last night at Olympic Stadium was bigger than the crowd in Mexico at Estadio Azteca in the first leg. So that in itself speaks volumes about the support that Montreal fans have really shown this team in the lead up to this tournament, and certainly in the lead up and the run to this game. With every passing game, the attendance had increased, and you could tell the buzz had really caught on to more people than certainly that were there from the start of this historic drive to the final. And in the end, it culminated in, okay, it was a loss and everything, but wow. I mean, the fan support, it was fantastic, and it really gave me goosebumps yesterday when the team was introduced and the stadium, to a man, every person, a boy, girl, woman, a man, and whoever else is in the stadium, cat, were rumbling, and it was just fantastic, a fantastic atmosphere all around.
What I also enjoyed, Lloyd, was all over North America, all sorts of MLS clubs, players, you name it, tweeted and cheered on the Montreal Impact. They were supportive of them, backing them. And, here in the city of Toronto, I took a lot of shots from a lot of people saying, if you support TFC, you should not support the Impact. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly for so many reasons that I don't want to get into right now. It's too long. But in Europe specifically, as an example, if Juventus were to get to the Champions League final, I can guarantee you a lot of fans from teams like Roma and AC Milan and on would, for that one day, actually support them because they're representing Italian soccer. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm with you on that. I mean, I see where the angle that people are coming from in terms of, the Impact and Toronto FC being rivals. There's absolutely no question about that. But I think what there is also no question about is that the fact that you're two Canadian teams. And I think, if pushed in a corner, I would imagine that you would look out for each other. It's almost like the two brothers, the two cousins that, always never see eye to eye, but when push comes to shove, they will look out for each other. If they're caught up in a dark alley per se, and not just run away and left for dead because they don't see eye to eye and they don't get along. So I'm with you. I think this competition was outside of the borders of a rivalry of MLS rivals. It for me, it signified a form of unity for Canada. It certainly signified a form of unity for Major League Soccer, and I think you see that with the support that was coming in, as you referred to, from around the league, from every single team. The commissioner was on board, and so I think, again, I see the point that some may want to refer to in terms of the rivalry that exists between the teams. But for me, this was as much as a Canadian team against a Mexican team as much as it was for Canada against Mexico in many regards.
I couldn't agree with you more. Once we play you next week, I believe, I can't get ready to whip your butt and the Impacts as well. And then we got game on. Let's talk about that first half. I got to tell you, that first half to me was electric. It was exciting. But I looked to my son and I said to him, the turning point of the game is when Piatti didn't put away that second goal when he was one-on-one with the keeper. I said that will come back to haunt him and the team, and it did. Talk about that first half, and then we'll discuss the second half.
Well, I tell you what, and that was that was an extension of the first game in Mexico, because Piatti had another one, and it almost played out again that same type of way. He had options, he chose to go alone, and he wasn't able to finish. In Mexico, he should have played Dominic Oduro through. He kept it on his own, and he missed the wide open goal when he tried to chip the keeper, who was out by about 12, 13 yards. Same again here, and I'm with you on that as well, because they had to score 2 goals against Club America, and they had to be 2 timely goals against Club America. The last goal that they scored to make it 4-2 that had no bearing on the outcome of the match. The first goal kind of set the tone, and it put them in a good standing. But they needed to score another one, and he needed to score that one. And that, I think, would have changed the complexion of the game. Club America would have opened up, and who knows, they might have got another one, Montreal, in the first half. And as simple as, it's all in hindsight, but I don't think I'd be crazy to say that had Piatti scored that, it certainly could have been a 3-1 game at halftime, or even 3-0 for Montreal. Because Club America will have opened up, and we know when they open up, they leave a lot of space behind, and with the counter-attacking play of Montreal so far, we've seen is very lethal. Certainly in terms of the build-up play, they just have to work on the polishing aspect of finishing those chances. But for me, definitely, he had to put that away, and that would have changed everything, I think.
Second half, I thought defending was absolutely horrific. It was poor. I thought Anthony Totera was not good at all. I thought Sumari was outplayed continuously. And Seaman, to me, was a star on that squad. If it wasn't for him trying to keep things in order, I thought it could have got even more and more worse. But hey, Dario Benedetto, 2 world-class strikes, 2 goals. I mean, who knows? Whoever was playing on defense on that day at their best, if they even could have stopped Benedetto, Lloyd.
And again, it comes back to the goals. They had Montreal, if they were leading 2-0 or even more, if the soccer gods were working in their favor, who knows how it would have played out. But, certainly defensively, I didn't think the team was very good overall. You mentioned some names. I don't think it was just those fellas. I think on the whole, the team didn't defend well. Ignacio Piatti offers nothing defensively. And I know he's not out there to track people down and kick people and all of that, but I think he can offer a little bit more offensively. Dominic Oduro is up front chasing shadows. He's at least putting pressure on the ball. With Ignacio's doing absolutely nothing. So you're essentially defending against a team like Club America with a man or 2 short, because the 2 strikers really aren't getting much done in the first line of defense. And quite frankly, if you play against a team with so much quality, you have to defend with 11 players, which includes the goalkeeper, and at every given moment, because they're so talented. From the right back to the left back, on the way through that team, they're full of skill. Their technical ability is superior to Montreal. I think man for man, I don't think there's any question about that. Maybe not by a wide margin, but they certainly are. And you mentioned the goals that were scored. They were world-class goals. But I think that overall, defensively, the game plan in the second half was poor. The execution by the players was poor. And it wasn't just the back 4, although they did get exposed, but I thought it came through midfield. And then, of course, you're under so much pressure in the back. There's no way you're going to keep out those guys the entire game, and they didn't. And
this is where I think Frank Lopez is going to come under a lot of heat, Lloyd, and we can talk about this later on in the season, but I said this, and I'm the only one that's saying it out there. Look, I think Frank Lopez needed to win that game for so many reasons last night to advance, and he didn't. And to me, if he doesn't get into the playoffs this year, I think there's going to be a lot of question marks whether you bring him back or not. I mean, to me, I don't want to get into all this goalkeeping debate stuff, what happened, because it'll take too long. But I think he lived and died with choosing niche. And I think he made a grave mistake. I think John Smits, NASL Goalkeeper of the Year, was ready. He traveled to Mexico with the team. He's younger. He's more agile, more flexible. And I think he would have given them a little bit more. He went with niche. Now he's got to live and die with that. That's one. The last thing is this. I think he made changes too late. When he started to see Club America start to put it in another gear, I think he should have brought in Jack McIlerney a lot earlier.
Well, as far as the goalkeeper, I know Niche was with them in Mexico. And I think they went with familiarity. I don't necessarily have a problem with them playing that goalkeeper, because he's come from a place where he's had to play games under pressure. He's played in the Bundesliga, he's played in Bundesliga 2, and he's played in big games. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And to be quite honest with you, I never thought this game was going to come down to goalkeeping error, or that he'd have a big input on the match, to be quite honest. I think he should have had the first goal. The next 3, I don't think he had anything to do with. In saying that, it's I think either way, had he gone with Smits, I would have been all right with. If he went with Nietzsche, I was fine with that as well. But in terms of the substitutions, I'm with you. Frank has had a problem, for me anyway, in my opinion, with substitutions through his entire tenure with the team. I've always thought they were too late. I thought oftentimes when the changes are made, they don't really do much to the match anyway. It's a like-for-like change that doesn't change anything. Whether you're winning, whether you're losing, it's just making changes for the sake of making changes. And I've always had a problem with that. I looked at last night. I thought they kept 4 in the back even when they were down by 3 goals, and I thought that was puzzling. Tissot was put on the left side. I expected him to stay high and then go with at least 3 in the back and try to spread them out and get some balls served in. That didn't change anything. They stayed 4 in the back. But it's all in hindsight. I look at the fact that Donadell was on the pitch, and that's as puzzling as anything for me. He had no part in the first leg. He barely trained over the last 2 weeks, and all of a sudden he reappears and he's in the starting lineup at the most important game of the season. And that puzzles me as well, because Patrice Bernier came on and played basically dying moments minutes with, I don't really understand that either, because he's a central midfielder. He's not an attacking player that's going to change the complexion of the game necessarily. He might do it from time to time, but it's just not a substitution you make when you're looking for goals. It was an odd thing, and again, it's all in hindsight, especially substitutions are all in hindsight. But I think Frank has got a pattern that's been repeated, and it repeated again last night, of making late substitutions that really have no effect on the game. Despite the fact Jack McInerney came on and scored, the game was done and dusted anyway by that point.
You're bang on. As we close it out and let you go, because I can hear some kids in the background. You've got to get back to training, I'm pretty sure. We'll leave it with this, with you, Lloyd. I've said this to you many, many a times. I think Joey Saputo is, bar none, the best owner in MLS. He puts his money where his mouth is. He cares about the city of Montreal. He understands the responsibility. He spares no cost, as we saw in Mexico what he did. He listens to what his players want. He goes above and beyond the call of duty. I think credit should be given some to as well Joey Saputo in really giving what they all wanted, was in Mexico. What they needed was a chef, more time spent there, and they came away with that result, which was amazing as well. So talk a little bit about Joey before we let you go.
Well, I'll just say this, and it's Joey exemplified what I think the club had done throughout this entire tournament, and it goes back to even the Canadian Championship, because that's where the whole journey also always begins, of course, and it begins next week, as you said, with Toronto FC coming to Montreal for the first leg of the Canadian Championship in the semifinal phase. It's a competition they took seriously. They've taken the competition seriously. They took the Canadian Championship seriously, and they took the CONCACAF Champions League seriously. I don't think every team in the CONCACAF Champions League, from Major League Soccer rather, that took part in CONCACAF Champions League can say that. Montreal did, and this is what happened. It culminated in a berth in the finals, and they were 45 minutes away from creating Major League Soccer history. Joey jumped on board, and he spared no expense, because there was no special need throughout in terms of finances throughout the group stages for him to flex his financial muscle, so to speak. But in these last phases, where they were given the privileges of being, given extra days with the reschedule of games in Major League Soccer through San Jose and Chicago, they were able to go to Mexico early, and he spared no expense. He put the players in the position to have no excuses to not be at their best on game day. And, they didn't get it done, and I don't think they were at their best on game day. And quite frankly, that has nothing to do with the owner, because he gave them and put them in every opportunity to do so. He deserves a lot of credit. I won't discredit the other Major League Soccer owners, but I know Joey, certainly in this run, deserves a lot of credit for what he's done, because he put his money where his mouth is. He put his money where his heart is, and that is to give the boys an opportunity to win this thing. Unfortunately, they didn't do it. But that's, that discussion is not because of Joey. This is Joey Saputo. Absolutely.
Always love having you on. Really appreciate it, Lloyd. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the season. And again, we really thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, my friend.
It's a pleasure, my man. And we'll see you next week. Toronto FC, Montreal Impact, baby.
Absolutely. Bring it on, baby. Now I'm going to start to hate you as of this moment. Lloyd, thanks again, brother. Take care. That is Lloyd Barker.